These officers, like me, have sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution. They've signed secrecy agreements. They quietly go about their work and try not to get too worked up over the headlines, including the fanciful notion that they spy on their fellow citizens via microwave ovens. As a policy, the CIA does not comment on the accuracy of purported intelligence documents posted online. In keeping with that policy, I will not specifically comment on the authenticity or provenance of recent disclosures. But the false narratives that increasingly define our public discourse cannot be ignored. There are fictions out there that demean and distort the work and achievements of the CIA and the intelligence community more broadly. And in the absence of a vocal rebuttal, these voices, ones that proclaim treason to be public advocacy, gain a gravity that they do not deserve. And that's one of the reasons we at CIA find the celebration of entities like WikiLeaks to be both perplexing and deeply troubling. Because while we do our best to quietly collect information on those who pose very real threats to our country, individuals such as Julian Assange and Edward Snowden seek to use that information to make a name for themselves. As long as they make a splash, they care nothing about the lives they put at risk or the damage they cause to national security. It overwhelmingly focuses on the United States while seeking support from anti-democratic countries and organizations. It's time to call out WikiLeaks for what it really is: a non-state hostile intelligence service often abetted by state actors like Russia. We know this because Assange and his ilk make common cause with dictators today. Yes, they try unsuccessfully to cloak themselves and their actions in the language of liberty and privacy, but in reality, they champion nothing but their own celebrity. Their currency is clickbait, their moral compass non-existent, their mission, personal self-aggrandizement through destruction of Western values.
Cross live now to former FBI agent and whistleblower Colleen Rowley. Thanks for joining us here on RT, Colleen. Now, I suppose we should start with what your thoughts are about the CIA's chief's statement about WikiLeaks.
You know, the CIA director is really showing how he's devoid of any facts here. He's going out and vilifying WikiLeaks and Assange and Edward Snowden. We should call him out and just say, you're vilifying truth and transparency and basically freedom of the press. The premise is entirely backwards. Truth and freedom of the press and transparency actually are what keeps us safe. I co-wrote an article, years ago that if we had had WikiLeaks at the time of before 9/11, we probably could have prevented it, because it essentially was a lack of sharing of information. And this is the 9/11 Commission, by the way, who found this, not me necessarily. They found that it was a lack of sharing of information, and most importantly, a lack of sharing of information with the public that actually allowed 9/11 to happen. So when Director Pompeo now says that transparency and WikiLeaks and no one disputes that the documents that WikiLeaks get, usually showing fraud, showing deceit, showing a lot of bad things, that they are completely honest and truthful. No one disputes that. And so I think what we have here is a director who wants to control the message. And of course, their message is itself dangerous in many cases. If you look at what's going on here with Syria, Pompeo should be spending his time on trying to find what happened in Syria, as opposed to looking at, going after WikiLeaks at this point. We don't even see evidence that the intelligence analysts were involved in these declarations that came from the Trump campaign or Trump administration. We don't see any intelligence assessment of that. MIT Professor Emeritus Theodore Postel says it almost could not certainly have happened the way Donald Trump is saying it happened. And we don't see any indication that intelligence analysts or CIA analysts were even involved. Yet Pompeo now is distracting us with WikiLeaks.
Well, Colleen, I suppose it is odd timing, isn't it? Do you think it's significant? Why do you think he chose to criticize it so harshly now?
You know, I think this, when he calls the people who are the followers of WikiLeaks, most of whom are truth and transparency, you know, and we're not even activists, but we know that good government, you can go back to Thomas Jefferson. Everyone knows that good government depends, and safety and security, by the way, depends on truth and transparency. If anyone should know that that the deep state plays all kinds of games with the press, leaking false information, planting things, it should be Donald Trump. Donald Trump was right the first time when he praised WikiLeaks. He was also right the first time when he criticized Hillary Clinton's fascination with regime change and her constantly pushing for violent regime changes.
Colleen, let me jump in there. Colleen, let me jump in there, because obviously you've just mentioned the fact that he was praising, Trump was praising, but so was Pompeo. Why, in your opinion, do you think we're seeing such a change of stance on WikiLeaks from the very people who were praising it previously?
I think these first 2 or 3 months here, the Trump administration, there's been a lot of pressure coming from the neocon war hawks, what actually Obama called the DC playbook. So that DC playbook, and Obama even said it's very powerful and it's very hard to go against. When Donald Trump said he was going to drain the swamp, that scared a lot of folks. It scared the people that want this playbook to play out. They want the wars to go on. They, you know, all the things that they're pushing for. They saw Donald Trump as an obstacle, and maybe rightly so. Now they have him, you know, through different mechanisms, the firing of some of his staff, the monitoring and surveillance, the leaks. But a lot of it was leaks to the press to control the message in the press. And I think, frankly, Donald Trump seems to have fallen under that spell now. Maybe he does not have enough advisors that are truly loyal to him. Pompeo is a question mark there, because it seems like he's just probably, maybe he always had a bias against whistleblowers. Many of the establishment politicians do have a bias against whistleblowers because they see them as somehow outing themselves. And sometimes if they're involved in wrongdoing, that's the case.
Okay, but, Colleen, we could talk about this for hours and hours, but great to have your thoughts on the latest developments on this story. Thanks very much, Colleen Rowley, former FBI agent and whistleblower.
The new CIA director, Mike Pompeo, has vented his anger on WikiLeaks, claiming it's a hostile intelligence service. In his first public speech as the US spy chief, he also didn't mince words to describe its editor, Julian Assange, and his allies.
We know the danger that Assange and his not-so-merry band of brothers pose to democracies around the world. Ignorance or misplaced idealism is no longer an acceptable excuse for lionizing these demons.
Oh, well, let's cross live now to RT's Daniel Hawkins. There he is, standing outside the Ecuadorian embassy in London. Of course, Julian Assange has been holed up there for almost 6 years. Daniel, some pretty harsh rhetoric coming from the new CIA chief. What else did he have to say?
Indeed, Rory, as you quite rightly say, I'm standing pretty much near the heart of this not-so-merry man of demons, the Ecuadorian embassy, where, as you rightly say, Julian Assange has been in hiding from authorities and security services now for quite a number of years. Mr. Pompeo certainly didn't mince his words when it came to describing Julian Assange. This was his first public appearance, public briefing, if you like, as the new head of the CIA, and he was very critical of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, stating that they didn't care about the lives they put at risk, nor about the damage they caused to national security, all because they want the destruction of Western values and understand nothing about America and their ideals. Now, his summary that WikiLeaks is as dangerous, if not more so, than enemy spies, intelligence organizations. In fact, he branded them a non-state hostile intelligence service. Now, Julian Assange came back this morning with a counterattack on Twitter, branding the CIA a state non-intelligence agency, and stating it's ironic that he's been criticized by an agency that has, according to many, been involved in the creation themselves of a range of terror organizations and the support of dictatorial regimes around the world throughout history. Of course, in these cases, and quite predictably, RT also got a mention by Mike Pompeo. He effectively stated WikiLeaks was aided and abetted by the Russian government and intelligence services. Quite an accusation. Take a listen.
It's time to call out WikiLeaks for what it really is: a non-state hostile intelligence service often abetted by state actors like Russia. Russia's primary propaganda outlet, RT, has actively collaborated with WikiLeaks.
Now, at first, this all makes for quite grim reading. After all, who would want to collaborate with such a sinister, dark and terrible organization as WikiLeaks, according to Mike Pompeo? But then again, you look at the list of worldwide, widely respected media sources, from those in America, the Washington Post, New York Times and Wall Street Journal, to those across the Channel in the UK, The Guardian and The Telegraph, and France's Le Monde newspaper, all organizations that have at one point or another worked with WikiLeaks, and suddenly things don't look so bad. It's also ironic because Mike Pompeo himself, while never declaring, let's say, outright support or admiration for WikiLeaks, was quite happy to cite them last year during the presidential campaign when they released those DNC-hacked emails, widely believed to have caused damage to the Clinton campaign, stating on his own Twitter, in fact, in July, about those leaks. It's also worth mentioning, just in the last 15-20 minutes or so, WikiLeaks themselves have released a new batch of documents, the Hive documents. That's the 5th installment of those leaks, exposing CIA hacking techniques. Now, we shouldn't speculate, of course, at this point here, the cause and effect. Did Mike Pompeo go on this tirade against Assange because these leaks were coming? Is this a counter-attack, if you like, by WikiLeaks as a result of those very serious accusations? We just don't know, but it does seem certainly that there is no love lost between the two organizations, and that is not likely to change anytime soon.
All right, right outside the Ecuadorian embassy in London, RT's Daniel Hawkins. Thank you.